He's a great citizen activist here in Washington State. He's also running for sheriff. So please give it up.
I want to first of all thank you all for taking time out of your lives to be here today. I never thought I would be a medical marijuana activist, and I sure as hell didn't ever think I'd be running for sheriff of Whitman County. I used to be a security guard back in 1985, and that's what started it off for me. I was guarding dynamite on the job, waiting to become an LA police officer, and I was always taught the lies that marijuana causes cancer, marijuana rots your brain, marijuana leads to criminal activity and everything else. It wasn't until I was hit in the back one day as a guard watching over dynamite and being tossed off a bridge 15 feet down on the boulders and left for dead that I discovered the real cure of medical marijuana. I was on up to 500 milligrams of morphine a day, 600 milligrams of Percocet, and 30 milligrams of OxyContin on top of medical marijuana. And without the medical marijuana, I go through up to 70 grand mal seizures a day, where I flop around like a fish out of water and black out from pain. Nothing from neurological, but it all has to do with C7 at the base of my neck blocking spinal fluid, to where up to 70 times a day it'll burst through and make my spinal column feel like someone's poured hot lava over me. As a matter of fact, in 2004, and a lot of you may think I'm a crazy SOB for this, but a lot of you will not understand that in 2004, after my mom passed away from colon cancer, the pain in my back was so bad, and I had no access to medical marijuana without the almighty dollar being involved, that I was forced with multiple seizures each and every day, and I decided, Lord, I'm ready to come home. One day, after having 4 seizures, one right after another, to where I'd wake up from the seizure and go right into another one, I decided, I'm done with this. I'm not married anymore. I have no family members anymore that would suffer if I were to pass away. And so I took a kitchen serrated steak knife and said, I'm done with this, felt my rib cage really carefully, and placed it into my heart 3 times to end my life. I bled out so much blood that it started leaking down to the downstairs apartment. The police were called in, they busted through my door, and I told them point blank, if you suffered as much as I did, you would end it too. At that point in time, 3 out of several officers pulled their tasers and shot me in the chest with their tasers to make me drop the knife. I was in so much pain, I just looked at them and said, I could do a better job than that. And in front of all of those police, I stuck a steak knife a 4th time into my heart. I died once in the ambulance, once on the operating table, had a 20% chance of ever waking up and an 80% chance of being brain dead if I did. Came through all of that and then met this incredible lady by the name of Carla and her 2 children over the internet. We fell in love and got together, and then the Anacortes Housing Authority threw us out of our home for the legal medical use of marijuana, even though it says in I-692 you will not lose your home for the legal medical use of this drug. They said since they get federal subsidies, I could just kiss their ass. They threw me, Carla, and our kids out onto the street. At that point in time, they declared war. So during the time that my family had to live in a tent for a month in Whitman County, I discovered every state and federal law there was to fight back. And I discovered on January 22nd, 2002, the U.S. Department of Congress in Washington, D.C. had rewritten the federal narcotic laws for the United States. It is clearly stipulated under U.S. Federal Code Title 21, Section 812, subparagraph B, that for a drug to be a Schedule I narcotic, it cannot have any accepted medical use and treatment within the boundaries of the United States. Nowhere in that document from Congress does it stipulate that the FDA and the DEA are the sole regulatory authorities that can recognize its medical value. So I thought there is a loophole right there that I can use, federal law against federal law. So I wanted to go ahead, set up a sting operation against the Justice Department and get busted on a federal level. So that way I could bring in someone from the Federal Cancer Institute and the Federal Veterans Administration to show just how the DEA and the FDA have superseded their authority as stipulated by Congress by still keeping this a Schedule I narcotic. They were too much of a coward to go ahead and bust me, so Brett Myers of the Quad City Drug Task Force decided to raid me instead and bust me under state charges, thinking they could get me that way since I probably didn't know state law as well as federal law with me doing all the research I did. They were dead wrong. I went ahead and used Article 1, Section 12 of the Washington State Constitution that clearly stipulates you cannot give someone a special privilege or an immunity of law. You do not give to all citizens equally, and that no RCW law shall be created that violates this. I also used the Washington State Constitution, Article 29, that stipulates the Constitution is mandatory. I also went ahead and utilized that in conjunction with forcing Mayor Mike McGinn from Seattle into my court case to testify how many shops they have operating in Seattle, showing that the same equal rights protected under the Constitution were not being protected in Eastern Washington. Instead, the prosecutor hid behind the Scott Shoup ruling and dismissed my case. I went back to court a week later and got the Superior Court judge to order the sheriff to return all my cannabis and everything else they took during the raid, and they were forced to give it back. I now have a $6 million civil suit going against the Quad City Drug Task Force in Whitman County for false arrest and for destruction of my property as protected under I-692. During all this time, I discovered that this was the third time that taxpayer money was used in trying to prosecute me. All because of my daughter standing up when she was 12 years old in the DARE program, when they came in and told her the same lies that I was raised with about marijuana causing cancer, marijuana causing all kinds of other diseases. My daughter stood up after seeing me go through seizures several times in her life when I don't use cannabis. She stood up and said, "How dare you tell these friends of mine in class that my dad is a criminal when he is a legal medical marijuana patient in accordance with state laws? How dare you preach federal doctrine when I am in a public school?"
Good for her.
This is the way it needs to be for other children. Their eyes need to be open. We need to quit hiding this from them. This is a medicine for many of us, and they need to be taught this is a medicine like any other. I am proud to have children that know this. And during all this time, I discovered that with no accounting of taxpayer dollars being used in keeping track of just what prosecutions are being done, we are getting totally treated horrible and wrong. Where is our tax money going? Why are so many people on the street? Why is health care so expensive? I am on Medicare and Medicaid, and I discovered dronabinol pills, which are nothing more than THC pills, a generic Amarinol, which the government says has no medical value anyway, and that's why we're fighting this war to begin with anyway. Why are they selling THC pills at $1,724 a month for 90 10 milligram pills if THC does not have any medical value? So with all of this going on, I also discovered that a sheriff actually has more legal authority in their county than any federal DEA agent has. So I thought, you know, what we have in office right now does not protect our rights. We can stand around passing around our brochures, we can pass any laws we want, but until we get people in office with badges on them that will stand up and protect what we vote for, your rights are going to continue to get violated. That is why I am running for sheriff of Whitman County as a medical marijuana patient, smoking marijuana as my campaign for sheriff. And I will win this election, and I will arrest the first DEA agent in Whitman County that crosses the path of any patient or provider, and I will throw them in general lockup. Thank you for your time.